Let's talk about a barbell hip thrust. First, let's talk about how this is different from a glute bridge so you understand what you're doing and why. A glute bridge is a smaller range of motion. It's going to be more controlled and focused on the top portion of the movement and keeping the shins more vertical. A hip thrust, on the other hand, is going to be a larger range of motion. You're going to lower your hips down closer to the floor or all the way, depending on your setup and height, and then explode up with more speed and intent. The hip thrust is a glute exercise that does allow us to extend at the hips, get more hip extension, and build strength in the glutes and even the hamstrings. Let's talk about how we're going to set up. Let's talk about how to do it and some setup tips. You're going to sit on the ground with your upper back against a bench and then plant your feet about shoulder width apart with your toes angled out slightly. And when you're in the top of the motion, you want your knees at about a 90-degree angle. You want to think about a straight line between your knee, your hip, and your shoulders. Allow the entire upper body to move down and up in a straight line. Imagine your body is a board from the hips to the top of your head, all the way down to your hips. You want to keep your core braced and chin tucked to avoid hyperextending your lower back. This will allow you to add load without feeling any sort of pain or discomfort in your lower back. Then from there, you're just going to roll the barbell over your hips and then lower your hips down under control, letting your knees travel back slightly. Then all you're going to do is drive through your heels and thrust up more explosively, squeezing your glutes at the top. Allow your glutes to stretch on the way down and squeeze at the top. And a couple other things to remember, we want the full range of motion with the hip thrust. So lower down and drive up fast, and then don't just think about lifting the bar, think about thrusting with power from your hips. If you are using a dumbbell, you can also do this by placing the dumbbell right on your hips. Just be mindful of how you are getting in and out of underneath the dumbbell so you don't get hurt, but this is perfectly fine to do with a dumbbell or a barbell as needed. Remember, with hip thrust, we want to maximize glute activation by using control on the way down and explosion on the way up.